Welcome to Flatten Your Fear Summit. This is all about dealing with your fears, getting past those things that are holding you back so you can walk in your purpose and destiny. And I cannot believe I'm having this interview today because I'm so excited to bring to you the third man in the ring, pro boxing referee, Kenny Bayless. Welcome to the summit.
Thank you, Elizabeth, for having me.
Well, it is an honor because you are someone who is looked at as at the top of your game. You have definitely paid the price, paid the dues to get there. You are respected, and I am honored to talk to you today. We want to tell people about your life story. We want to encourage them that they too can overcome odds. So let's get into who is Kenny Bayless, what brought you to where you are, and let's start with what happened to you really at a young age. I want to talk about your mom. I want to talk about the loss of your father. So let's go back to when you were born. What happened when you were a year old?
I was born in Berkeley, California, and I had two brothers. Actually, I'm a twin brother, and I had an older brother. And at a very young age, my father had passed away. Me and my twin brother was just a year old.
Wow.
And my mom had to raise three sons, very young in her life. And it was tough for her, but at the same time, back during those times, she was a God-fearing woman, and she raised us growing up knowing the Lord. And we went to a church that I would like to mention, McGee Avenue Baptist Church. On Sundays, it was Sunday school and church, and in the evening, it was youth fellowship and church again. And on Wednesdays, it was Bible study.
Yeah.
And so my mom just directed us to know the Lord at a very young age. And I'm just so thankful that she did.
Well, we talked about how your mom is such an example of overcoming obstacles and fears, because to be a single mom with three little kids, to lose your husband, and there are people that can relate to that you have to face fear and just say, I've got to push through. I've got these three kids that I need to bring into the world the right way. And so we want to honor her in what she did. She lived to be 100, is that right?
That's correct, 100 years old. And
wow.
that was just a blessing, within itself. And though we didn't have a father, and she had to, make up some ground with being mom and being somewhat dad for us, because,
sure.
We just didn't have that father figure that boys like to seek. So there was some fear there with us boys growing up.
Sure. I can imagine. I can imagine. This is someone I would have loved to talk to. I bet she was just a fierce, amazing, loving woman. So now you're growing up, and you actually never boxed, but you were an athlete, right? So you were dedicated to athletic pursuits. What did you do in school?
Well, I went to a Division II college, and the name of it was Cal State Hayward. And I played freshman basketball because they had freshman sports back then. And then I started running track and field. And what kind of pushed me in that direction was that my twin brother ran track, and my oldest brother, who graduated from Cal State Hayward, had ran a little track and played a little football. And so I just kind of jumped on board. And by the end of my senior year, I became an All-American, just like my twin brother. Cool. And life was just grand back then.
So when does boxing come into this? I mean, you're a young man, you're dreaming about your future. Go back to the time when you're dreaming about who Kenny Bayless is going to be. What are you thinking? What are the dreams that you're having back in high school as you start to go out now into the world?
Well, I tell you, when I was growing up, high school and such, Muhammad Ali was a fighter that a lot of people know, that was big on the scene. And I grew up watching him on my mom's old black and white television.
Yeah.
And I would have never guessed at that time that boxing would be a part of my life, because like you said, I knew nothing about it. I just watched Muhammad Ali on television.
Wow.
And my senior year in high school, I got recruited to go to Las Vegas as a school teacher.
Okay.
And so I get to Las Vegas, and I'm teaching school, and I actually go to a boxing event for the first time.
Yeah.
And it would happen to be Muhammad Ali.
Awesome.
And it was awesome. It just blew my mind that, you know, growing up, I'm watching this guy on television, and now here I am in the arena that he is actually fighting on. So at that time, Elizabeth, I wanted to get involved in the sport, but I knew nothing about the sport.
Right, right.
So I continued to go to different boxing events, because back then in Las Vegas, Las Vegas back in 1972 was kind of new.
Yeah.
The only thing they had back when I came here was UNLV was just getting started with their basketball program and sports. And believe it or not, I didn't like Las Vegas when I first moved here.
Really?
I didn't. I mean, in the Bay Area, we had the Raiders, we had
Yeah.
the 49ers,
Yeah.
we got the Warriors, we got the A's, we got the Giants. I mean, it was sports everywhere.
That's right.
And when I moved to Vegas, there was no sports.
Nothing.
Nothing. And so my attitude was to move back home. And but Las Vegas at the time was a land of opportunity.
Right.
Getting a teaching job was one thing, but there were other things that you could get involved with.
Yeah.
So I contemplated about boxing, and knew that the only thing that if I wanted to get involved, and I had decided at the time to be a judge.
Okay.
So I got in the Golden Glove amateurs, and I started learning how to be a judge. Now, the judging is just sitting there and making the decision at the end of the round who you thought won the round.
Yeah.
And I said to myself, well, how easy could that be?
Right, right.
But judging is very difficult as well, because it takes a lot of concentration.
Sure.
You cannot be distracted by the crowd. You cannot be distracted by what you hear from people around you say. You have to be focused for 3 minutes.
Wow.
So I got in the amateurs and started doing that, and was getting very successful at it. And then when I went to the professional shows, Elizabeth, I would judge those as well. Yeah. And I would compare my scores with some of the professional judges.
Sure, yeah.
Well, one day, one of the judges looked at me and he says, Kenny, you appear to stay in good shape. Why don't you try refereeing? And as soon as he said it, my first thought was, nah, fear.
Really?
Fear.
Fear.
No. I'm not doing that. I'm not getting that in that ring and trying that.
No kidding. Yeah, no kidding.
And I thought about it after a while and thought about it. And I said to myself, well, why not give it a chance? Why just give it a try and see if you like it.
Yeah.
And a referee that became my mentor, who was living in California, moved to Las Vegas. His name is Richard Steele. And Richard Steele took me under his wing and started showing me the art of refereeing.
The art, I love that. The art of it, yes. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, so in the Golden Glove amateurs, not only was I judge, but I also was an amateur referee.
Yeah.
And I just worked those two and stayed with it. I mean, I went, Elizabeth, for probably 10 years without missing an amateur show.
Wow.
That's how dedicated I was, and that's how I wanted to perfect the art of refereeing.
Let me ask you a question. What was it like the first time you stepped in the ring as a referee? Different experience, right, than being a judge. What did that feel like?
It was scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was scary because as much training that Richard worked with me at the gym, even sometimes with amateur fighters in the ring.
Yeah.
That first time when it was for real at the Showboat Hotel, I was nervous as can be,
Yeah.
but you know, back in those days, I did a lot of praying. I did a lot of praying to take the edge off of what it was
Yeah.
going to be like when I was in there.
Yeah.
And as I share my story, the praying just continued because you're breaking
Right.
down those fears that you had. And I
Well,
had fears getting in that ring for the first time.
I would imagine as somebody who just, totally on the outside, there are levels of fears there. First of all, there's a physical fear. I mean, you've chosen a profession that has real physical danger.
Yeah,
I mean, it really does. I think people forget that. They don't think about the fact that the referee is in danger. You've got two powerful men there.
yeah,
Also, the fear of making a mistake, right? The fear of
yeah,
stepping out and making a call that the whole place says, oh my gosh, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. I mean, the fear that you're going to call it wrong. There's
yeah.
so much there that I would imagine your mind is racing. How do you quiet your mind? How do you quiet those fears and just focus? Do you have techniques that you use to do that, or is it just practice?
Well, it's just practice. I mean, a lot of referees have their own little ways of breaking down those barriers. For me, and because I was in the amateurs for so long, I mean, I started out doing the novice fighters, and the novice fighters are kids that have 0 fights to like 15 fights. And
Okay.
then as they improve, they go from the novice to the junior Olympics. Now they got like 16, 17 fights to maybe 30, 35 fights. And then as they improve, then they get to where they become the open division.
Yeah.
Now their skills are fine-tuned, and now they are working their way to possibly make the Olympic team, et cetera, et cetera. My progression works the same way. And
Okay.
by the time I get to doing the open fighters, my skills are polished.
Yeah.
I'm confident. I don't second guess what my eyes see.
Oh,
Because
that's good.
that's the whole telling sign. Because, like you mentioned, if we make a mistake in today's time with the internet and Facebook and websites, everybody knows in a matter of
Everybody.
just minutes.
Yeah.
So I have to be on my A game every time I step in that ring. And we're not all perfect. And I've made mistakes, but God has blessed me because
Yeah.
I pray every time before I step in that ring.
Yeah.
And I don't just only pray for myself, I pray for the fighters
Yeah.
because their health and safety is in my hands.
Yeah.
I pray for the other officials, referees that are climbing through those ropes that night doing the same thing I'm doing, that by the end of the day, those fighters are able to climb out of that ring on their own power.
Yeah. Amen.
And
That's
us
great.
referees have something to do with that.
Oh, of course you do. So,
Yeah.
what do you think ultimately it was about that specific job of refereeing? And now, of course, you have your eyes on the pro circuit, right? And we're going to talk about how you get there. But what do you think it was that drew you in? I mean, clearly, this ultimately we can say today, we can look at the success of Kenny Bayless and we can say, obviously, he was meant to do this. But it's not obvious, when you start, what your purpose is, what your path is. What do you think drew you in? What could you not avoid when you said, oh, I don't want to do that, but yet you were drawn to it? So what was it about the sport that drew you in?
Well, I believe, Elizabeth, that at the very beginning, my love for the sport, watching Muhammad Ali, and then having the opportunity, I had the opportunity to see him fight on 3 occasions coming to Las Vegas. And so from that, and then just being around the sport, the people just kind of drew me in.
Yeah.
And there are ups and downs in any profession, but for me, there was more positive to the sport than negative. Though I didn't know as my journey continued, but yeah, it just drew me in, and the people and the level of the sport is ultimately what caused me, despite all the situations that I was in, And as I continue to tell Elizabeth, there are some times when I thought I was going to throw the towel in because
Yeah.
of some
Yeah.
issues, which we'll get to.
Yeah, let's get to that because I think too, people sometimes get confused when they think, well, this is my purpose, this is my path, so it's got to be obvious and easy, or I'm not going to want to quit. Quite the opposite, actually. I think we war for and fight for our purpose, and we have
Yeah.
to bring those gifts and develop them into talents because you had the raw gifting, but you had to develop the talent. So now you're in the amateurs and you've overcome some of those fears, but you're working on your mindset. I can imagine you keep getting stronger and you're wanting obviously the big prize, which is to get into the pros. So some things happen in your life. So take us to sort of what was going on. I want to hear about your frustration that came with not getting where you wanted to be right away.
Okay, when at the amateur ranks, I had gotten to the point, Elizabeth, where I was the #1 amateur Golden Gloves referee in the state of Nevada. I had went to the Golden Gloves National that same year and performed well. And the only thing left for me in the amateurs was to become an IEBA official, which is the top amateur referees on the planet.
Wow.
Well, I didn't want to be a top amateur referee. I wanted to be professional.
Yeah.
So with my credentials where I was at the time, the only thing left for me to do was to get appointed as a pro.
Yeah.
And everybody knew who I was. Everybody knew that I was next in line to be appointed by the Nevada Commission. And when the time came, Elizabeth, they picked someone else. And it just, when I tell this story, I tell them that the top of my head blew off. I was so mad and upset that they could do it to me because also at the time, I was an inspector with the Nevada Commission. And an inspector, we're policemen that police the ring, police what the trainers and the fighters do. And I had been doing that for about 7, 8 years.
Yeah.
So everybody knew me.
Of course.
Everybody was waiting for me to turn pro because they knew how well I was in the amateurs.
Yep.
And when I didn't get appointed, it just destroyed me to the point, Elizabeth, to where I wrote a letter to the Nevada Commission, and that letter that I wrote was ugly. And it was ugly because I was mad and I wanted answers.
Yeah.
But one of the things I did before I sent the letter in is I let my wife, Lenora, read it. And she read the letter and she looked at me and she said, if you send that in, you will never become a referee.
Wow.
Because I had, not only was it ugly, it was just hateful. It was, the ugly side of me came out. Yes. Lenora took the letter and cleaned it up. And I sent it in. And I got a letter back from the commission, and the commission stated how fair they were and honest the Nevada Commission's ability to do what they do, et cetera, and you will have your day in court. Now, I don't know of any, and I've talked to many referees over the years, and they've told me their story about how they got appointed, and I don't recall any of them telling me that they had to have a hearing.
Wow.
Before they were assigned to be a referee.
Wow.
So 2 things happened before my hearing, Elizabeth. An angel came to me in human form. And the angel said to me, Kenny, I know you got your hearing coming up, but be careful what you say.
Wow.
And I said to myself, be careful what I say. I'm the victim here.
Yeah.
I mean, there was still anger in my heart. And then the Lord sent a second angel because apparently the Lord knew that the first angel did not get through to me.
You needed 2.
So the second angel said just what the first angel said. Kenny, be careful what you say.
Yeah.
And now I'm starting to think about it now. So I get to the hearing, Elizabeth, and they're going through the agenda. And when they get to me, the executive director says, Kenny Bayless is our best inspector. When Sugar Ray Leonard and Marvin Hagler and Larry Holmes and the top fighters in the world come to Vegas, they want him.
Right.
He's personal. He interacts, and they're saying all this stuff, and I'm sitting there and I'm saying to myself, well, shucks, this isn't going too bad.
Right, right.
Then all of a sudden, it was like the pendulum swung from one side to the other side.
Oh,
They said, but this Kenny Bayless has an attitude.
wow.
And they started pounding me, Elizabeth, and I'm sitting there sinking into my chair saying, oh boy, what next?
Wow.
And they were pounding me from all directions. And I just sat there. And when it came time for me to speak, I said, I make no excuses for my attitude back then. And I had an attitude.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I was pounding on everybody back then when they didn't appoint me.
Wow.
And I said, I make no excuses for my behavior then. I just felt that it was my time. And when I didn't get appointed, what you saw is what you got. And I sat back down and I didn't say another word.
Mm.
And the room got quiet. And one of the commissioners said, okay, well, let's just vote on this right now, right here.
My goodness.
And they voted. And I believe because I didn't shoot my mouth off and show that ugly side of me, they both voted me in 5-0 to become great. Yeah.
Wow. Well, you know, I got to give some credit first to Lenora because, you know, sometimes we get so in our head and we're so upset and we see a goal, and she allowed you to kind of allow some of that hot air out. And then God sent 2 other people, right, to say, come on, Kenny, this is not who you are. And I mean, I'm listening to the story and I know that you got voted in, but I'm like on pins and needles. Did you get voted in? It's like, amazing. You were given grace, and you learned a lot through that, didn't you? Wow.
I went through a lot, Elizabeth, and there was still so much anger directed at me. One of the commissioners spoke with me later and was telling me kind of what I was up against. And this is where the challenges after I got appointed that I had to deal with. Because the guy that they had put in front of me, I had so many years of experience over him. I'm still feeling like that my experience should carry me along in my journey, just like I saw how well he was advancing.
Right.
But he was advancing and I wasn't, which was sparking that anger back in me again, to the point that Elizabeth, I was ready to quit.
Sure, I'm sure.
Because I'm looking at everybody else advance, especially him.
Yeah.
And I'm still sitting in the same spot.
Frustrating.
And it was frustrating to me. The anger started to come back out. And I was actually literally talking to people talking to them with the anger of quitting, and they're saying to me, don't quit.
Right.
That's what they want you to do.
That's right. Yep.
Don't quit.
Yeah.
And I had a number of people say that to me because I was very vocal then, and I was still upset, and then this is what happened, Elizabeth. I was voicing my opinion with me and some of the officials, and one of the officials looked at me and said, Kenny, there is nothing we can do about assignments. Everybody wants the big mega fight. Everybody wants.
Of course.
And she said, you just have to put it in the hands of the Lord. And when she said that, it was like a light switch turned on, and I said to myself, I'm a Christian.
Yeah.
I know that.
Yeah.
And that's what I should have done for these last several years, is just give it to him.
Yeah.
and then focus on being the best official you can be.
What a lesson.
Yeah. And
That's
at that point, that's what I started doing.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what, Kenny, that's a lesson in so many things. First of all, not to quit, because, we will have that resistance come against us. The worst part of us sometimes comes out. God allows that. He wants us to deal with it. Nothing worth achieving comes easy for reasons, right? And you are the man you are today as a result of going through that pressure. Did it have to happen that way? No. Do you have a story to tell that is a cautionary tale to other people? Yes.
Yeah.
And this is the beauty from it.
Yes.
And ultimately, now you are where you are. You have fought for that. You have sacrificed. You have learned lessons. And let's not forget what happened along the way. Let's talk about what happened with the cancer diagnosis and that pressure that came upon you.
Yeah. All officials, especially referees, we have to get 2 exams. We have to get an eye exam, and we have to get a physical exam, go see a doctor.
Yeah.
And when I went and saw my doctor, and they always take blood work, and as a part of the physical, my numbers had elevated, and on my PSA, on my prostate. And so he referred me to see another doctor, which I did, and they did some more testing to find out that I had prostate cancer. Wow. Now, Elizabeth, I felt at the time that I was the healthiest person on the planet.
Sure, sure.
I exercise, I work out, I eat well, but to find out that I could eat better. But it blew me away that I was diagnosed with cancer. And I felt at the time that once the commission found out that I had cancer, that I was done.
Sure.
I was finished.
Yeah.
And did not know what to do. I didn't know what to do. Well, as you know, my wife, Lenore, is a wellness coach and health educator. And she was assuring me that I was going to beat this. And so for 10 months, I changed my diet. I ate healthy. During those 10 months, I did not let the commission know that I had cancer.
Of course, right.
And after 10 months, when I went back, my numbers got better, but the cancer was still there. And I just didn't know how long more disciplined I could be in eating healthy to continue to make my numbers go down. So I just chose to have the surgery.
Yeah.
In having the surgery, the other thing you have to be mindful of is if the cancer gets outside of the prostate,
right,
then it can attack the lymph nodes. It can just go any and everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, prior to going in to my surgery, I did let the executive director know at the time, and there was a bit of concern that he had as of how it's going to affect me in the ring.
Sure.
And I told him, I've had it for the last 10 months, and you haven't seen anything up till this point.
Wow.
So I went in and had my surgery. The cancer was contained in the prostate.
Thank God.
And yes, and when I got out, I went in for my surgery on the 28th of May. And after that, I started doing my rehab, etc. And when I finally got back in the ring and did my first fight in September, I was assigned to do my first biggest super fight that I had in my career.
Wow.
The fighter by the name of Oscar De La Hoya fought a guy by the name of Bernard Hopkins.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you this quickly. There was some media that did not like the idea that I got the fight.
Really?
Yes. And I found out later that one particular member of the media was planning to discredit me.
Oh, Okay.
Yeah, yeah, that's just the business that I'm in.
Yeah, I know.
And so I knew going into that fight that I had to be on my A game, because if anything, any controversy, I
They'd
knew
find it. Yes.
that's right.
Oh
They'll
man.
find it. And I just thank it to the good Lord upstairs. And if one to say, was there some fears going into that fight? Well, sure there was,
Yeah.
because I knew I had to be on my A game.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I prayed to the good Lord to position me. He already positioned me in that spot anyway.
Yeah, he did.
So just carry me through it, and
He puts you there. He gives you the skills. He gives you the mindset. He gives you all of that to make it happen. And you know, what's so fascinating about you, Kenny, is that even people who really love the sport of boxing, we focus a lot on the boxers. We focus on them as really amazing athletes, aren't they? I mean, it's probably the best athlete in the world is a boxer in terms of conditioning and mindset. And when they step into that ring, it's this battle, right? But when, as the third man in the ring, when you step into that ring, it's this in such a big way. And it's so fascinating to see that viewpoint from someone like you. And it's such an interesting, a kind of like almost a way of looking at life, right? And overcoming odds and pushing through. You are now, would you say you're at the top of your game now, or where are you in your career? How do you feel about it?
Well, the sport has made me very humble.
Mm.
It has, and I hear my boys say it often, and I hear people in general say it often, because people recognize me as the #1 referee in the world.
Yeah.
And you know, to me, it's a job. I mean, my job, when we go to our seminars, and sometimes I can attend 3 or 4 seminars a year, and people say to me, well, why are you going to the seminars? Your work is clean. You're one of the top in the world. And I say, yeah, but you never get too old to learn.
Oh, amen.
And in this job, I have to be on my A game every time I step through those ropes. And not only that, at these seminars, I want to educate other referees like I was educated, so that we keep that trend going in officiating, because we are the guys that get it. If one referee makes a bad call, that affects all referees.
Yeah. You guys have to maintain a really, really high standard, and you are leading the way for that. And there will be generations that will point to you. I know you're a humble man, but there will be generations that point to you as a waymaker in this industry. I have to ask you, because it's too fun not to ask, what was it like? We are a huge Rocky family here. What was it like to be in Creed 2? How cool was that?
It was fantastic. Because I had always wanted to be in a Rocky movie.
Yeah, of course.
I've always wanted to be. And when I got the call to be in Creed 2, it was like, everything was going to stop, because it was going to happen, that I was going to make an appearance, to be there. And the way they treated me, it was like, I mean, I actually, Elizabeth, had a dressing room that had my name on it.
I love it.
Little old me.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
Yeah. And I was able to share a moment, because my oldest son was living in New York. And I called him and I said, look, if you can come and experience what I'm experiencing, do it. And he jumped on a plane, and because we were in Philadelphia, and he jumped on a plane and came, and he got a chance to experience it. And it was,
you know, all fun aside, I mean, it's so much fun, but it is confirmation that you have dedicated yourself. I mean, you're in that movie as yourself. I mean, you can't be a bigger star than to be in a movie as you're playing yourself. You know, that is what I think people just admire who you are. You have made a name in a way that is humble, yet completely earned. And it's not been an easy path. But I want you to say in closing, I just want you to share with somebody who's watching right now that feels like too much is in front of them, too much is behind them. They just haven't been able to get where they want to go, that they don't see that they will be able to break through, that their dreams aren't happening. You know, that person who's just so frustrated and afraid that the future is not going to be what they've always felt God put in their heart. What would you say to that person today?
Well, I would say life is about challenges. And in those challenges, you're going to deal with a lot of obstacles. Fear is probably one of the biggest ones.
Yeah.
And in knowing that whatever your destiny is, whatever you feel that the Lord has placed on your heart to do, don't give up. Mm. Elizabeth, when you mentioned about boxing relating to life,
yeah.
It's that knockdown. When fighters get knocked down, they get up.
That's right.
And they may have to change what they did before they got knocked down, but that's all a part of the plan.
Yeah.
To stay on your feet. Amen. And work through whatever obstacles you have to work through to make life and your destiny come about.
Awesome, Kenny. That's awesome. I can't thank you enough. We could go on and on. I promised you half an hour. I think I even went over that, but your story is amazing. I honor you for being such a humble man, but you are gifted and you submitted yourself to what God wanted you to do through all of this. So thank you so much. Thank you for bringing your brilliance, your insight to this community. And I believe you have helped somebody today. And that's what it's all about, right?
What it's all about. And thank you for having me, Elizabeth. And if you want me back down the road somewhere.
We're going to do something. I'm feeling a podcast in your future, Kenny. I mean, I know you got to go do a match tomorrow, but someday you're going to be getting a call from me. We got more to talk about boxing, believe me. Thank you, Kenny. Thank you. God bless. Thank you so much.
Thank you too. God bless.